It comes as a great shock around the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to discover that the flag which you have pledged allegiance along with everybody else has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you.
How many of you, when you hear the word Aborigine, think about an Australian? An Aborigine is a person who has been in a land from the earliest of times. If you look around the world, there are many copper-colored Aborigines when you do your research. See, they want to tell you that you are not a native, you're not indigenous, right? But like in the previous episode, I said, if you were the earliest form of human, you are an Aborigine to the world.
Before Adam, right or wrong, those people that were here before Adam. And he always refers to these people as Aborigines, which means what? Black folks. Whenever you never find a white Aborigine. Rather, Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are Aborigines, but you don't like to be called an Aborigine. You want to be called an American. Aborigine actually means from the beginning. It's two Latin words. Ab meaning from, origine meaning the beginning. And Aborigine is only the term applied to those dark-skinned people who have been on this earth since the beginning of the universe. You know, that's going way back.
So I don't subscribe as a Native American or an American Aborigine, but I identify myself with an Aborigine of the world because my ancestors were the first humans to inhabit the earth. So I don't really get into all of that, but I know right now we're in a war. We're in a war with our own people, with the Native American, foundationally Black American, Pan-Africanism, Jamaicanism, whatever these movements are, they're divisive, right? You guys always mention in your movements Marcus Garvey and Haile Selassie, the Black Panthers, so on and so forth, but all I see is division. And I don't know if the internet is so accessible, it has you going at your own people, but it's a form of self-hate that you would even want to go at your own people, right? You guys are disputing about a structure, a social structure construct that you didn't make up. You didn't make up the term Aborigine. You know that you're an Aborigine, but you're fighting over these terms of your oppressors, but you're fighting with each other. So to me, it's like you guys miss your moment, right? You miss the point of your own movement, and it's to unite a people. It's more of us around the world than anybody. When the numbers are numbering, when the math is mathing. But you guys have so much, it's mestizo, I'm not black, I'm not this, I'm not that, for this construct now. If you said, hey, well, actually, yes, I am, because if I went to America, they would treat me like this. Or if I went to Africa, they would think I was this. Or if I went to certain countries around the world, they would think I was black. So it's okay to follow the construct when you are trying to rise as a people. And that's the only time that it's okay. So today, you'll see some Aboriginals worldwide, and I want to welcome you to the episode called America Before the Slave Trade. I want to open it up with some Aborigines worldwide. Most of these Aborigines that you'll see here, we talked about the sub-Saharan phenotypes, and we talked about East African types. We've talked about Melanesians, right? We've talked about Asians, right? But we haven't really put them in a box, and we'll do that. So here you'll see a lot of Asian, right, phenotyped Negroids. And they probably look like some people in your family. They may even look like you. We have the Melanesians, right? We have some Native Americans. We have the hidden faces of the world, which shows you in one box many people, many copper colored people. We have the Ida people from the Philippines. We have the Coasians. We have the Chinese. And all of these people are considered black. Australian Aborigines. So you'll see that I am so fascinated with Australian Aborigines because they are some of the earliest people that they say inhabited. Well, they are the earliest people to inhabit Australia, but they say, and it's up in the air, that they're some of the earliest people to migrate out of Africa, if you believe of the out of Africa theory. Some of the Aborigines that I've spoke to don't believe that they came from Africa. They have their own theory of evolution. And that's why in the last episode, I told you to ask yourself, what is your theory of evolution? Because there's many out there, right? And I'm not here to dispute that. I'm just here to provide the information so that you can go with whatever you want to go with. I have my own theories, my own philosophies. Some of my philosophies are mixed, so I really have my own philosophy of what I think happened. And maybe you'll come to that conclusion as well. So, Australian Aborigines argue they are genetically closer to Asia than Africa. And they said that they migrated out of there 70 to 80,000 years ago. So, the first genome analysis of the Aborigine reveals that these early Australians took part in the first human migration out of Africa. They were the first to arrive to Asia some 70,000 years ago, roaming the area at least 24,000 years before the ancestors of the present day Europeans and Asians. So they were the first people to inhabit Australia and what it looks like Asia as well, right? They were also the first to live in Australia according to DNA results of a 90-year-old hair sample of a young man that linked Aborigines to the first inhabitants of this part of the world about 50,000 years ago. So, America before the slave trade. I told you last time we want to ask ourselves questions. So these are some of the questions that I asked myself getting on this journey, right? And the reason why I got on this journey is because growing up, you always heard people say, I'm Indian. Or you say, oh girl, you must be Indian, you got that good hair. But not realizing that we all have good hair, one. And that Indians look like all different types of people, right? Black people all over the world look like all different types of people. You can go into Africa and see Africans and they look like Indians, Native Americans, right? You can go into Africa and there's some people that look like mixed Arabs, maybe Arabs, right? You can go into Africa and see people that look like they're from South America, Puerto Rico, Dominican, whatever. And the truth of the matter is, no, they're just from that land. Which means that black people must come in all shades, right? The lightest person in the world is black. The darkest person in the world is black. Hair doesn't have anything to do with anything. I know people black as me, darker than me, and I'm pretty melanated with this hair that you guys say is Indian hair, right? Ethiopia is there's people that look like sub-Saharan Africans. I will say I also am now believing that once I look around the world and see all these people from all these different places, that people, black people, just look like anything. We can create anything, right? And I only believe in a 2 to 3 race people, a Negroid, a Caucasoid, and I'm not even sure if I believe in a Mongoloid. I believe that a Mongoloid came from one of these 2 species, right? Some Mongoloids have Neanderthal DNA, so I would assume that they, of course, came here. Then some are just black, and for whatever reason, if it's amalgamation, right? If it's crossbreeding, that's where that species came from. Or a mutation happened, right? In a different land. And that's why you have these people, but I believe that they were either 1 or 2, and then it became the middle, right? That's just my theory. That's just my theory. When I look around the world, I see you came from a black person. You came from a Spaniard, the European. And that's just what I see. So this is what you have to ask yourself. Do you believe that Americans traveled migrated from Africa to the Americas? If Africans traveled to the Americas, what was their route? What kind of boats did they travel in? Vessels, ships, etc. Did Africans travel the Bering Strait, like they say Siberians did, right? Or East Asians? Is every African that looks sub-Saharan sub-Saharan? So you've heard me say the sub-Saharan thing over and over and over again, and I just kind of went over that. There's Ethiopians that look like what they would say is sub-Saharan, and there's Ethiopians that look like y'all say mixed, or what people say mixed, right? Same thing with people in South America, which they do have a lot of mulatto offsprings, right? A lot of amalgamation there, right? But what about these countries that don't have much amalgamation, but they look like the lightest of light, the Spanish of Spanish, or the darkest of dark, or the mixed, right? And you see that all over the world. You'll see people in the Philippines that look sub-Saharan, right? You'll see people across all these lands that look sub-Saharan, but somehow people on the internet only equate sub-Saharan to West Africa. If so, why are, like I said, these melanated beings worldwide that appear sub-Saharan even pre-Columbus Native Americans? The difference between race and ethnicity, right? This is important to address before we get into everything, because I don't think that people have a definition, a clear understanding of race and ethnicity, right? When race is this Darwinism and his friends, his clan system that they've created about race, right? And we'll go into Darwinism and all that in the next episode. But of Negroid, you have Mongoloid, you have Caucasoid, right? So when you guys hear that, somebody asks somebody in South America, are you black? They say, I'm Latin, I'm Latin. That is not your race. That is your ethnicity. You are from a Latin American country. But in Latin America, there are many Negroids. If you believe in the slave trade concept, then there's said to be, you guys inhabited the most Negroid prisoners. You say, I'm mestizo, which means you're mixed. In America, If you have 1%, one drop, you're black. Now, if you want to say I'm mixed, say that. But stop acting like the mestizo is not a mixture of black. That's all we want you to recognize, because it is self-hate. We are going by this construct right here, right? So that we can come together. Because until we say we are black, then we can't come together, because we're fighting about I'm not black, I'm not black. Oh no, I don't want to be black. Because that's what it is. I hear it all the time from other ethnicities. I don't want to be dark. That colorism. It's a colorism. And you know where that comes from? Darwinism, inferiority, superiority. But then some of you guys don't want to be Caucasoid either. And the truth of the matter is you're mestizo, right? Is what you say. So understand what those things mean. Here. But today we are here to talk about all of that, right? We're here to talk about Mexico and how some of the indigenous people of Mexico, the olmecs, were Negroids. And there's DNA proof. We're here to talk about how some people in the South Americas and North Americas are Negroids. And there was DNA proof. Not only was there DNA proof, but these founding fathers on their voyages described the people here as black, like Ethiopians. And when you look at some of these Native Americans, you'll see some that are black, like Ethiopians. Not because they were, well, some of them were freed slaves, but they were also prisoners of war on their land. Not because they were brought here from Africa. All right? So you'll see here some of those copper-colored Aborigines that look like your family members. Because I know some of them look like mine. So, you also have Sir Benjamin Franklin, one of your founding fathers here, saying, "Why should the Palatine Moors be suffered to swarm into our settlements? They will never adopt our customs any more than they can obtain our complexion. All Africa, Asia, and American are swarthy, black. Russia, Italy, Spain, France, Swedes, and the Germans are black." So, let's go to this. Because some people say that Caucasians are a offspring of Negroids, and I personally do not believe that. Just like Sir Benjamin Franklin said, they will never adopt our customs any more than they can obtain our complexion. And I just think that to be truth. Right? You've seen I said the lightest person in the world is black, and they don't look like a Caucasian. That's something else. Respectfully. So he's explaining all of these places that inhabit black people. Africa, Asia, America, Russia, Italy, Spain, France, Swedes, Germans are black. And if you do any research on the Holocaust, you'll see that there was black people there too. That's why I don't understand why you guys keep arguing about slavery in America and the Holocaust when there were black people in the Holocaust too. There were black Germans too. Okay? When Benjamin Franklin The Scots, hold on, the principal whites are made up of Saxons, and the English, the Scots. Welsh and Irish are not Saxon or English, which means they're different people too. That's why some of them say, I'm not, I'm not, I'm not this. We don't get down like that in our country. So no, not everybody's a bad person. Not everybody's a good person. But the complexion for protection is in the race, what it appears to be. Right? When Benjamin Franklin writes this essay in 1751, the black German King George II is sitting on the throne of England. All right. So, how did American migration happen? It's a question of the day. Bering Land Bridge, right, which is said to be where the Asians, the Native Americans, they say, migrated from Asia to America. I've already showed you that there were Negroids in Asia, right? Genetic studies suggest the first people to arrive in America descended from the ancestral group of ancient North Siberians and East Asians that mingled around 20 to 23,000 years ago. They crossed the Bering Land Bridge sometimes between then and 15,000 years ago. However, it is also said that that can't be proven. The fact that this land bridge was repeatedly exposed and flooded over the past 3 million years is really interesting because Bering, at its largest extent, was a really high latitude continental landscape in its own right. Getty. So again, here is the Bering Sea. You'll see how there's these routes right here. You'll see how they said that they traveled some through Alaska and through the bridge. Early man reached the New World from Asia, passing through the Bering, a now vanished land bridge to North America that was as big as the continental United States in pursuit of big game. These ancient hunters moved south, traveling an ice-free corridor between two major glaciers or perhaps hugging the shoreline. Later arrivals trekked eastward. Americans were coming 27,000 or more years ago. Asians traveled an incomplete land bridge to Australia, rafting deep waters between the continents. So, it was on a mission, is what they said. Rafting, right? Some Native Americans don't believe that theory, though, right? Native Americans are a mixture of ethnic groups, so it's uncertain by this text which group was asked according to the text. Natives do not believe they came here via the Bering Strait, and they believe there's proof. Analyzing the display and poster of such great racial diversity, one instinctively prompted to reconsider the orthodox theory that all inhabitants of America prior to the discoveries of Columbus descended exclusively from the migration waves of via the Bering Strait. Most anthropologists accept this theory that the ancestors of American Indians once walked over then frozen Bering Strait and eventually populated the Americas from Alaska to the southern tip of Tierra del Fuego. With the wild tribes and civilized empires and nations found in America by the first European explorers. Everyone seems to believe this except the Indians themselves, past and present, who have conserved oral, written, and pictorial traditions of their province, practically none of which have to do with Siberia. So, what is an Indian? Cambridge Press Sculpture and Social Dynamics in Pre-Classic Mesoamerica defines an Indian as a member of various groups inhabiting North and South America when Columbus reached the West. One would expect the people portrayed were Indians, but what is an Indian? The only definition that makes sense is an American Indian is any member of the various groups of people inhabiting North and South America when Columbus reached the Western Hemisphere AD 1492. In the Middle America, there are many full-blooded Indian communities in various regions such as the Aztecs and Maya area. The remarkable facts of the countless Mesoamerican ceramic figures is that they portray few, if any, American Indian types such as the Aztecs or Mayans. Those appear prior to the date, and others appear thousands thereafter, belonging to other races such as Far Eastern African Negro and Caucasian. But no one group monopolized the scene. Caucasians from one end of Europe, Asia to the other. Negroes from Africa, Mongoloids of Chinese, and Japanese types from the Far East, from the Mediterranean, at different times came various Semites, including Phoenicians, Carthaginians, and as well as Egyptians, Greeks, Etruscans, I don't know who those people are, Romans, and others. Right? Which is telling you that these people are a different variety of people. So it's kind of hard to tell who's been here first or not. But the truth of the matter is that these people are Native Americans. Indians, by definition. And there's no disputing that. But many try to continue to dispute that like it never happened. And it's in text, books of voyaging ancestors. Some of the, what they call founding fathers, what they observed here in the land. Because some of them were all over the place. So my theory has always been, you're telling me that black people couldn't have traveled to the Americas? And how the hell would you know who inhabits all of the land if you ain't been to all of the land? Right? But in text, people who have traveled in many different places say what they have seen. And the conversation seems to be, well, how did Africans get here? There's no way that Africans could have gotten there. But if I just told you that African or Aborigines, copper-colored Aborigines, were all over the place before anybody, why do you think that they wouldn't be the first to get to America? I'm just saying. That just makes sense to me. As a kid growing up, that just always made sense to me. It was like a calling or something. So African exploration. Although many will argue about the exploration of Negroes traveling from Africa to the Americas via the Atlantic, Bering Strait, or from wherever, the fact indeed is that Negroids have been on the continent before the arrival of Christopher Columbus and obtained early navigation to do so. These reed boats that I'll be showing are some of the earliest boats to travel the Atlantic. Not only are they some of the earliest, but they are also said to be the only type of vessel that could withstand the Atlantic. The prophet Ezekiel around 590 BC describes the marvel of the Phoenicians' ships as follows. They made all thy ships boards of fir, trees from Sinir. They had taken cedars from Lebanon to make the mast for thee. Of oaks from Bashan, have they made thine oars. They made thy benches of ivory. Ezekiel 27:5. And now you'll see the Ra. You'll find the Ra on the Egyptian walls. And the Ra, when you see the Ra, it's a very small boat. And the first Ra, which was larger, didn't survive the mission. So what they did is they took the second Ra, made it shorter, and it was able to survive the mission across the Atlantics. And they were called Torah reed boats. It was 10 feet shorter than the Ra. So that is a way that they traveled to the Americas because of the storms. And it has been said that for a long time now that that's how they got here on smaller vessels, because bigger vessels were either lost at sea, damaged, right? Or shipwrecked. So now we get to talk about what these settlers came and what they seen when they came to the Americas. Many settlers traveling to and through the Americas pre-slavery had described the indigenous people in the Americas relating to the Africans, but not African. These people inhabited through North, Central, and South America. In 1524, Giovanni wrote a letter to King Francis depicting the people in the Carolinas as being black, like Ethiopians. So here we just have some Negroid images of America, right? Peru, BC 8800. Looks like a Negroid. Like a real live sister today, Negroid. We see this in the neighborhood all day, every day. Oaxaca, Mexico. And I could be butchering that. A Negroid. Hid. The good olmec. Mexico. All throughout Mexico, we'll talk about the olmecs. Then you have Negro heads in Veracruz. Estavanico, which was a African Moor who was a slave that traveled as an interpreter to the Americas with his owner, right? Master, whatever. And my question was, how did Estavanico even possess that skill? Because remember, they said that you was dumb, you couldn't read, and you couldn't be colonized. You only could be colonized by the white man, right? You couldn't be civilized. You only could be civilized through colonization, right? But you're the same people, the savage people that they referred you to as the people that invented writing, mathematics, and medicine. And to me, clearly language, because why do you need me to interpret for these Native Americans? Do I look like a Native American? Which I believe he probably looked like a Native American, because who else would make them bring their guard down other than someone who looked like them, right? So, Estevanito was one of a kind. He was the first black person mentioned by name in American history, the only black in the first party to cross the North American continent. The first non-Indian to discover the old world Southwest. The first non-Indian, meaning everybody that they've seen there and that I'll prove that they've seen there wasn't Indian. First to set foot in Arizona and New Mexico. His courage and ingenuity opened the Southwest civilization. So Estavanico wasn't just an explorer, he was a pioneer. So, like I said, they said that you could not be civilized. In the late 1820s, he examined the heads of parties of Indians, compared them to Indian skulls found in the Western map, and reached the conclusion that when a wolf, the buffalo, and the panther shall have been domesticated like the dog, the cow, and the household cat, then and not before many, we can expect to see the full-blooded Indian civilized, like the white man. Advances amongst the Indians, he argued, have been among half-breeds, and the more white blood, the more civilized. The only efficient scheme to civilize the Indians, argued Caldwell, is to crossbreed. Attempt any other and you will extinguish the race. Oh, you see that today. They're even pushing it on TV that you guys go find you someone outside of your culture and go ahead and crossbreed. They say by 2050 the world is going to look like, I don't know. I would name a few kids, but I'm not going to do these celebrity kids like that, but we know. They're not like us. They not like us. They not like us. You often see Africans and Americans compared to one another as if they are vastly similar in appearance, culture, and behavior. The Caucasian, Caldwell argued, must at one time have been as uninstructed as the African or the Indian. He outstripped the others because he was superior to them. The African and Indian were inferiorly organized and endowed. In discussing the African, he used the centuries-old white argument that there was a close link between blacks and the apes, asserting that in the genital organs, the blacks resemble the ape fully as much as he does and I don't have the last part, but these are people who like pioneered these who created these constructs like Darwinism, right? And we'll talk about Darwinism in the next episode. But these are the people that you would read created educational system. This is what they would be teaching you in your educational system. Darwinism, racist, this, right? In slavery, indoctrination, in slavery, and then you see in society today, the lighter they are, the better you are. If you're a woman, especially, right? The complexion for protection for all. This is what we would put in the education system and argue tooth and nail about. Some of our people argue tooth and nail that it has to be right because they put it. Just like the medical field, it has to be right because that's what they said. Those people don't care about you. I told you that already. Now we got to talk about the tone of the American Indians when it came to the white settlers. They did not in any shape or form trust these people. They didn't even want to take pictures, right? You see some taking pictures. Those are different people. You're the people that didn't want to take a picture. We hardly, some of us is in the camera now, but that's because of the programming, right? But I sometimes get uncomfortable. You'll see some of our ancestors like now, like, I don't want to take a picture. Don't take no picture of me, right? And they looked at the settlers as evil people But some traded with the settlers. They made friends. Some made friends out of these settlers. So the agenda of the Europeans now is in question. So was it to gain trust from the Indian so that they would let their guard down and then they would change and manipulate and dismantle their systems and then colonize them as a whole? Because that's what I seen. Never came here and gave me 3,000 pistols so that when you came over here, I was ready to cock load and punch on you. And if you did, you didn't give me no ammo so that I can come and be at war with you. Here I was interrupted. So these are Englishmen who was trying to get something from these Indians. Right? This is documented. And this is how the Indians reacted to them. They wanted to see some of their native land. I believe it was a tree, just like in Avatar, right? They tore down the tree that was very significant to their culture, right? Here I was interrupted by a grim and black visaged fellow. This is the colonizer, right? Who shook his long shaggy locks as he rose, with his sunken eyes fixed in direction of hatred on me, and his fist brandished with an inch of my face. So he was pissed off, like, what the is you doing over here? Paleface, you cannot speak until we have all done. You are prisoners. So when they came over there, some of those Indians were not friendly with these people because they knew about them already. They heard about them down the street. Yo, don't trust these people. They came over here and they did this, this, and this, is what happened. You cannot, so I'm assuming that this is a chief or somebody that he was speaking to. You cannot speak till we have all done. You are prisoners. Our young men are about the house, and you must listen what we have to say. What has been said to you is true. You must go back. So I told you they was there looking for something. They said, y'all can't come up here. This is cut off. We cut this off. This is for the people. We heard the word Saganash, and it makes our hearts glad. We shook hands with your brother. His father is our father. He is our great father. He lives across the big lake. I wish I had more of that one for y'all. Columbus' primary journey, although they said he was on a mission to convert. So they say Columbus was going to all these lands to convert all these people to Christianity, and that's what they used to do. I talked about Njinga before, but if you look in these ancient cultures and you look in these African cultures and lands, and if you see today, they say you have to convert, right? So they want you to convert, and if you don't, they come and they colonize, and then they end up colonizing anyways. It don't matter if you convert anyways. And then just like in Africa now, they're trying to tell all these people, oh, you have to be accepting of human rights. Is what they put it under the human rights label, but really it's like what they believe is you brought Christianity, and Christianity it says certain things are a sin, but now you're saying that's why you really have to. What happened to the "In God We Trust," right? So you brought these books over here and said no homosexuality, right? And then now you're telling Africa for human rights, for the sake of human rights, you have to accept these people. But then people say it's progressive, right? But when were the books meant to be progressive? Do you think that God meant for his books to be altered and progressive? Or do you think that that's when the law got passed, that was the law? I have to come to terms with it with myself. You feel me? We all got to come to terms with the wrongdoings that we're doing. So he was here. So Columbus was here looking for gold, right? And shiny things is what he really was here for. He heard it was gold out west, and I need some of that. It's already a lot going on in Africa. I'm gonna need that gold over out west. During the absence of emissaries, the Indians had informed him by signs of place to the eastward, where the people collected gold along the river banks by torchlight and afterwards wrought it into bars with hammers. Speaking of this place, they again used the words barbecue and bohio, which he, as usual, supposed to be the proper names of islands or countries. The true meaning of these words has been variously explained. It has said that they were applied by the Indians to the coast of terra firma, called also by the Caritaba. It also said that bohio means house and was often used by the Indians to signify the populousness of an island. Hence, was frequently applied to Hispaniola. All these reports of gold and pearls and spices, many of which were probably fabrications to please the admirable, tended to keep up the persuasion that he was among the valuable coast and islands of the east. Right? So they were sending him on goose. They were sending him on burnt missions. Right? So it's different terms that are used to describe copper colored Indians, right? I've seen Shawnee, I've seen copper, I've seen Ethiopian. Sometimes I get mixed up between the tawny because tawny could be like a lighter person, but a light skinned person as well. So their complexion was a tawny or copper hue, and they were entirely destitute of beards. Their hair was not as crisp like the recently discovered tribes of the African coast under the same latitude, but straight and coarse, partly short above the ears, but some locks were left long behind and falling upon thy shoulders. Their features, though, were obscured and disfigured by paint, were agreeably they had lofty foreheads and remarkably fine eyes. They were of moderate stature and well shaped. Most of them appeared 30 years of age. There was but one female with them, quite young, naked like their companions and beautifully formed. So this is describing what, like, the culture of people. This is giving you a description of what the people looked like, right? They said they were tawny or copper hue. Their hair was not crisp like the recently discovered tribes of the African coast. So these people are compared here to Africans. Indians taken from the Americas to the West Indies. So some of these people were taken to the West Indies when we talk about the trade. If Indians were taken to the West Indies from the Americas, where are they now? That was one of my questions. I've learned that a lot of them died, or most or all of them died because of disease, right? Because my question is, I don't know if all of them died or not, but where are they now? Because most of the West Indies are Negroid people, right? And a question that I had was about the slave trade is, and we might get to it later, did you guys come to these lands where you've already seen copper colored people? But let's worry about that later. If the West Indians are the Indians from the land of America, then the Indians were clearly black. Obviously, if not all of them died like they said. Blacks make up 80% of the population of the British West Indies and 90% of the population of Haiti. Other major ethnic groups on the British Islands are those include blah, blah, blah. As Africans were shipped to America, Indians were transported to their natal communities to labor elsewhere as slaves. So they took some of these people to other lands, right? Who do they usually take to be? Who do Caucasus people usually take? Europeans. Who do European Spanish explorers take to be their slaves? Their places. And you see it today. They say that all these people got here because they were slaves. So who do they take? So that means that they took Americans and took them there. Okay, just saying. Many Indians from Central America were shipped to the West Indies. Many Indians from Central America were shipped to the West Indies. Also, common destination for Indians transported out of Charleston, South Carolina, Boston, and Massachusetts. Within a few decades, the Spanish expanded the trade in American Indians from the islands of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Cuba, and the Bahamas. And we see the type of people that live in most of these places. Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and the Bahamas. It's a mixture of mestizo, right? We gotta throw the mestizos in there. We can't forget about the mestizos. And the Negroids. Columbus' first voyage was a military reconnaissance mission. He took only 3 ships, a small crew to evaluate the natives' defense capability, and scout for gold. That's why he really went to the Americas. To, like I said, see what y'all got over here. Oh, y'all using bows and arrows? We got guns. On his second voyage, he came back with an invasion force of 17 warships and 1,300 soldiers. And they gave him a day called Christopher Columbus Day. I want to get into some more descriptions because I'm here today to prove to you that there were Native American copper-colored people in the Americas before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. So most of this is the second half of our mission today, is to expose that. Description of Americans on European voyages. Source: Sailors' Narrative Along the New England Coast. This is actually a source I got from another person's conversation, right? Education lecture. And it was Negroids of Maine. All the rest were all naked. They described the Negroid Indians of Maine as black, swart complexion. Virginia, they were very well favored in proportion of continents through colored black. Though colored black. Carolina coast, Giovanni de Baranzano. And we talked about him, King of France, in January 1524, said, the complexion of these people is black, not much different from the Ethiopians. Their hair is black and thick and not very long. It is worn upon the head in front of a little tail. In person, they are of good proportions of middle stature, a little above our own, broad across the breast, strong in the arms, and well formed in the legs and other parts of their body. The only exception to their good looks is that they have broad faces, but not all, however, as we see many that had sharp ones with large black eyes and a fixed expression. They are not very strong in body, but acute in mind, active and swift of foot. As far as we could judge by observation in the last 2 particulars, they resembled the people of the East, especially those the most remote. North Carolina, Giovanni again. This young man remarked that the people were black, like the others, that they had shining skins, middle stature, and sharper faces, and very delicate bodies and limbs, and they were inferior in length, but quick in their minds. This is all that he observes of them. Giovanni, again, Newport Harbor. This is the finest looking tribe and the handsome in their costumes that we have found in voyage. They exceed us in size and are very fair complexion. Some of them incline more to white and others to tawny color. So this seems like a mixed tribe. When it says more to white, I think, and then they say tawny, I'm thinking like how there's different colors of black people. All right, could be. Their faces are sharp, their hair long and black, upon the adorning of which they bestow great pains. Their eyes are black and sharp, their expressions mild and pleasant, greatly resembling of the antique. Maine, Sir Walter Raleigh. These people are of tall stature, broad and grim visage, of a black swart complexion, their eyebrows painted white, their weapons are bows and arrows. It seems to, by some words and signs they made, that some Basque of S. Jean de Luz have fished or traded in this place. So now they're talking about another settler or migrant or whatever you want to call them had been there previously, or trader, right? I just wanted, this is not what they use, but I want to show off my grandpop's Indian knife, right? If I was to go fishing, I could skin a fish with it. Such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Balboa. Balboa asked the Indians were, okay, hold on. Okay, under the shadow of Coacrica, they came upon an Indian settlement where, to their astonishment, they found a number of war captives who were plainly and unmistakably African. They were tall, black, of military bearing, who were waging war with the natives from some settlement in the neighborhood. So they're saying that these African people, right, because they just had to be African because they were black, were waging war upon Indians. Balboa asked the Indians whence they got them, but they could not tell, nor did they know more than this. That men of this color were living nearby, they were constantly waging war with them. These were the first Negroes that had been seen in the Indies. All right, these Negroes are here. Where do these Negroes come from? Like I said, you cannot in those times know everybody that was in America. So there are these islands, right? So there was people on these islands and they got there whenever they got there, and they never ran into each other until they ran into each other. And when they ran into each other, they said, "Who the f is you?" Then some of them started beefing. It's like being in the hood. Peter Martyr, the first historian of the Americas, reports on this remarkable meeting between the Spanish explorers and the blacks of Darien. The Spaniards, wrote Martyr, found Negroes in this province. They only live one day's march from Cacarica. So somebody already said, there's some niggas over there. And just down the street is some Indians. Because Indians came in multiple colors. Right? So here's some more from some sources I was looking at, and I'll try to put them up. Very fair, a tint to a complexion almost black. And this too under circumstances in which climate can have little or no influence. They was just black. So also in reference stature, the difference are remarkable in entire tribes, which moreover are geographically proximate to each other. These facts, however, are mere exceptions to the general rule and do not alter the peculiar physiognomy of the Indian, which is undeviantly characteristic as that of Negro. For whether we see him in the athletic cherub of the stunt Chima, in the dark Californian, or the fair Barora, he is still Indian and cannot be mistaken for a being of any other race. Pittsburgh Crowdy, Choctaw and Creek Indians. Skeletal show that the type that a Creek Negro Indian wore in those days. Alright, so they're saying that Creeks were Negroes. So, Africa, America, or African American, which one? We just named up all these Negroids across the Americas, right? Including some of the islands. So are they African American or are they African American, which they say is a misnomer? I learned that terms such as mulatto and colored were used or had been used in Virginia in a quite different way from their usage in most books, including modern dictionaries. I also discovered that many were not answerable within the context of the latter, such as, what do you call a person of mixed American, European, and African ancestry? No one provided an answer because it seems the American mixture with the African was generally subordinate to a focus upon or fascinated with only the black-white nexus. So they didn't want to hear about none of that. The modern dictionaries all stated that a mulatto was the child of a black and a white, or someone mixed black and white ancestry. But where did that leave those who were part Indian? I assume that they're not part Indian, that they are Indian. In any case, I discovered that Native Americans' descendants had legally defined as mulattoes in Virginia 1705 without any African ancestry. I discovered that Native American descendants had been legally defined as mulattoes in 1705 in Virginia without having any African ancestry. The mulatto is someone who was described as being black and white. So, now we have here Alexander von Wathenow. And he wrote a book called Unexpected Faces in Ancient America. And in his discoveries, he found Native Americans all throughout Mexico. And the biggest one that we know when we talk about today are, yes, the olmecs, which in some pictures they look Asian, in some pictures they look fully Negroid, but if we look at some Asian features, they say that, not they say, but we know that Negroids were in Asia as well, but some of these Olmec statues that were found were undeniably straight up Negroid, looking like, I love it when you call me Big Papa. Okay? I mean, some of them are in this picture right now. So the Olmecs flourished between 1200 and 400 BCE in Mesoamerica, southeastern, their primary location, southeastern Mexico. So, Jose Maria Melgar in 1862 found a gigantic carved stone head with similar features to those of Africa. It took nearly hundreds of years, however, and more discoveries of large and small artifacts convinced archaeologists that this was a distinct and original culture. While the large stone heads measuring as much as 10 feet in height, weighing up to 20 tons, have sparked theories of African contact with prehistoric America, there is no consensus on their purpose or their meaning. So, archaeologists have said these features, this culture is an African culture, Negroid culture. So their resemblances to Africa were the earrings that were in some, and some of the olmec heads were different. They had some, I believe, with dragon, right, dragon head, and they had gold. So the resemblances were their earrings, the gold, their features, and even pre-Columbian skeletons in North, Central, and South America that came back as Negroids. The discovery started in 1862 when enormous stone heads of Negroes were uncovered at pre-Columbian Olmec Indian site in Mexico. Because of scientific data techniques, we know now that they could not have fathomed then some of the heads date to 800 to 700 BC. Other finds were realistic portraits of African blacks in clay, stone, and gold, and pre-Columbian Negroid skeletons in South, Central, and North America. The distinctive Negro features on the stone heads and clay sculptures are irrefutable. Full lips, high cheekbones, wide fleshed nose, curly hair, goatee beard, even African tribal earrings and hat. The size of some stone heads, 6 to 9 feet. All right. Professor Houghton, a physical anthropologist reporting on these finds, said of the skeletons, the pectoral skulls resemble most closely crania of Negro groups coming from the parts of Africa where Negroes commonly have perceptible infusion of Hamitic blood. Finds like these, in addition to the stone heads and Negroid clay masks of the same period, like the Negroids of Salinas mask in the bottom row of plate 6, force us to consider afresh the explanatory parallels between ancient America and Africa in this period. Dismissed before as mere coincidence, it is not strange that in this very period when the Negroid African begins to appear in Mexico and to affect significantly the Olmec culture, that the first pyramids, mummies, trepanned skulls, stele, and hieroglyphs began to appear in America. Is it not most strange that during this very period that a Negro African dynasty gains ascendancy in Egypt and black pharaohs, Negro Nubians, don the plum servant crowned upper and lower Egypt? No mummies, no pyramids appear in the hemisphere during heyday of these in the Egyptian world, but suddenly they spring up in flower at the same point in time as the Negro Nubians usher in Egyptian cultural renaissance, restoring these features that had long lapsed in Egypt, and for there are no evolutionary precedents in America. Egypt was passing through a very unstable period, and unusual movements of fleets and armies reflect this uncertainly Egyptian fleets. as well as Phoenician fleets in the pay of black Nubian rulership were traversing the Mediterranean. The Phoenician moving even into North Atlantic to points as far north as Cornwall in the west for supplies of tin. So we go way back into time. And from all over. All over. I just told you about all the aboriginals, copper colored people came from all over. So the not the trade routes, the voyage routes were all over the world, wherever we inhabited. We just was moving. We was on the move. There was nothing else to do back then but move. We're lazy now. We can't move. We got borders. But back then, you don't think people was like, all right, I could just take me and my tribe and we can get on our way. We're doing is sitting here anyway. Let's go see what's out there. We be on the plane trying to see what's out there. They was on foot trying to see what's out there. They was on little ships, little boats, seeing what's out there. Because there ain't nothing else to do anyways. And you got to go to work every day. As a work of art, he wrote, it is exaggeration, a magnificent sculpture, but astonished me was the Ethiopic type represented. I reflect that there had and undoubtedly been Negroes in the country. Melger's report stirred little interest at the time. However, the discovery of a second similar head several decades later began to focus archaeologists' attention on the neglected area of Mexico. These olmecs heads were found. Dr. Alfonso de Garay, director of the genetic program of National Commission for Nuclear Energy in Mexico, indicated earlier an extensive contact between the Lacandas and Africans. Negroid characteristics have been found in their blood, although they have not been known to mix with outsiders in post-Columbian times. Dr. Garay reports include, almost other things, a reference to sickle cell, malaria-resistant mutant gene, usually found only in the blood of black people. So even in earlier times, like this goes down to the science, right? Not just the visual discovery, but now we're in the genetics of malaria and sickle cell that are found in black people. Genetic mutations found in black people, letting you know that these people were black or mixed with black. Fribonous was deeply interested in Phoenician contacts with Nigeria, but he also stated clearly that there must have been early contacts between Africa and America. During the German anthropological expedition in Nigeria, Frobenius excavated a substantial number of terracotta heads, partially from the Ebolicum and partly from the Ahife. Among the heads excavated by Frobenius in Nigeria was a representation that was practically identical with a Phoenician clay mask, Humbaba, from Sardinia. In Appendix 15, blah, blah, blah. Phoenicians' masks of this types are reproduced, one with Semitic features and one with Negroid features. In connection with the question of Negroes in America, I should also mention the investigation conducted by Mexican scientist Dr. A. D. Garay on the presence of Negro blood in one of the oldest and most secluded tribes in Mexico, the Lacandos. Dr. De Garay and the director of genetic program of National Commission of Nuclear energy in Mexico. His reports include a reference to sickle cell malaria resistance mutagen found usually only in black people during the first international festival of Negro art in Dakar. So here you see some Afro Mexicans. The concept of race in Africa is completely different than the concept of race in America. So what we have to understand now is when I said that race is important now because it is a construct, right? It is a construct that divides a people into groups, right? So instead of saying, okay, we are this ethnic group, because then that's where, to me, colorism comes in. We have to say we are this race right now. We need to be this race right now so that we can elevate as a people. We can rise as a people. We can come together. If we're so divided on, oh, I'm Latin American, oh, I'm a Native American, I'm a FBA, I'm a this, I'm a that, it is separating the people. People in Africa don't even see people by their race because all they see is themselves. So the concept of race in Africa, because it's normal that you wake up and you're the majority, right? So they don't even look at like race as a thing. They probably call like the ancestors in these tribes would call the other people, whatever names they call them. The concept of eye color and skin color is just not a thing. And here is a African girl who said, I felt weird when I came to America years ago and was referred to as black. I still do when this happens. I am which is her tribe. So she answers her tribe. Another thing that threw me off when I came to this country is how people, especially my students, would come on comment on the color of my eyes. Until I went and got my passport, I had never given the thought of what the color of my eyes are. I don't even believe I look in the mirror once I check. So I didn't know what to put on the application. It never occurred that the color of my eyes would be anything else but black. So I put black. Soon after arriving, I learned that my eyes weren't really black, but sort of lightish brownish. My father and a few of my siblings, now late, have very light eyes. So she probably had hazel eyes, and she was like, I don't know what y'all talking about. Because that's not important where I'm from. Where I'm from, everybody looks like me. So that's another practice of self-hate, where people don't look like you, so you treat them like they're not a part of your tribe. Or they look like you, but they're not from your land, so you treat them like they're not a part of your tribe. They're saying that this is my tribe. And that's how they identify. I'm at a point in time where we have to get back to our culture and roots. We come from the first seed, the first human. We are all connected. Whether you like to be connected or not, we are all connected. When we connect and we gain unity, you'll realize that we are the majority in the world. It's the copper-colored Negroid Aborigines. And some of us have evolved into another species by maybe mutation. Or you're just an Aborigine of your land. And it's okay to be from the Dominican Republic and say, yes, I am a Latin. I come from a Latin country, but I'm black. I come from Asia, but I am black. I come from America, but I am black. And I hate the construct. But once we become a one, then we can defeat a whole. And that should be the only agenda right now. We're finding out who we are, but in our journey of finding out who we are, we also have to bring people with us. In order to rise up, we must rise up as one. I believe that we are not free until Africa is free. Why do I say that? Because who's in Africa right now? Stealing all of the African resources. And for a reason. Now, if America's resources were stripped, I assume, but now they are in one of our lands, stripping our resources because it is our situation. Because we are copper-colored Aborigines. Because if those aren't my brothers and sisters, then they're my cousins. And that's just a simple fact. And they look like me and I look like them. Because all in Africa, people look like everybody in America, everybody in Brazil, people in China, or Asians are some of the original inhabitant Negroids as well. So you have your Aboriginal Asian copper-colored people, and you have your Aboriginal Negroid African people. Or if you believe in the theory that you have African evolution or melanated evolution all over the world at the same time, I'm with you too. I really don't subscribe to any of it because I subscribe to you are a copper-colored Aborigine. Wherever you came from. Whether you migrated there or you were evolved there. We have to get back to that state of peace, that state of being. Right? To love on one another and to make money not synonymous to greatness, not synonymous to value, right? Because although we live in a capitalistic world, money has no value, right? The value is in the people. The value is in the energy. The value is in the spirit. Now I want to list off some things that are some of the oldest things recognized in America. Across the world. Some of the oldest things across the world. America has the oldest mountains, the oldest trees, the oldest rivers. America has the oldest animal fossils, along with Australia. The oldest vegetation is in America. The oldest mummies are in America. The oldest calendars. The oldest pyramids are in America. The oldest writing system. The oldest human is in America or Australia. A majority of the world's agriculture are indigenous to Americas. The oldest mammals are in America. Even some of Africa's animal kingdom originated in America. They say the biggest form of reverse psychology to hide that America is the first and oldest continent, including inhabitants. The ancient America has more pyramids and advanced cities than any other landmass simply because it is the cradle of civilization. The out of Africa theory was nothing more than a distraction, psyop, to hide the truth. So like I said, some people believe that America is the oldest civilization. Some people believe that we are from. Some people think that we did not come from Africa. We are Americans. Period. It's up for you to decide which theory you follow. But at the end of the day, the goal for our people should be to rise up as a people It should be to love on one another and to find out the truth about ourselves worldwide. Because we are them ones. We are one of ones. They not like us. They not like us. Let's rise up. Let's love on one another. Let's elevate. Peace to the gods. May the gods have peace. Thank you, Lord. The truth that has been bestowed upon us and revealed to us. The truth that we are aboriginals of this world. The truth that we were made in your image. The truth shall help us rise. The truth shall help us love and unite with one another. May the truth set us free. Tease, triggering truth. Peace.
You know.
Are you an Indian?
Yes. Oh, really?
Oh,
I thought you were a black guy.
Hey.
You're Indian?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
You gotta
What
be
kind of
kidding.
Indian are you?
Like Tonto Indian?
Shinnecock Indian.
Really? You're Shinnecock?
Yes.
See, his family was here when Columbus landed, huh?
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
So you are not a black man, you're an Indian.
I'm Indian.
I got so much flack because the Indians, they felt like they were being picked on or some shit. You know what I'm saying? But little did they know, Flavor Flav is a Native American too. I have Indian blood in me, and my family comes from the Shinnecock Reservation, eastern Long Island. And so does LL Cool J's family.
Go to platinum red beats on my wall with the family becoming. I you a throw you right, brother. The Indian is old man, I took the white man, my grandfather. Step up.